Hello, everyone. This is Dorie Clark, and we are here with our weekly Newsweek interview show, Better. And our guest today is Damon Brown. Damon is the author of the new book, Career Remix. And as we come into the end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022, we are here to talk about how we can be remixing our own careers. So, Damon, it's wonderful to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dorie. It's good to connect with you.
Absolutely. And welcome to everybody who's joining us live. Please feel free to type your name and where you're dialing in from into the chat box, because we'd love to welcome you, and we'd especially love throughout the course of our presentation today to take your comments and questions for Damon Brown as you think about your career moving forward into the new year. So, Damon, the first question that I have, obviously, we are in a moment right now, a cultural moment, where everybody's talking about the great resignation that is continuing. We have joblessness levels that are at pretty much all-time lows. We have massive turnover where a quarter of Americans seem to have shed their jobs and perhaps be looking for something different and better over the course of the year. And so with all of this turnover and tumult, you're right in the thick of it with Career Remix. What is your take? What is your perspective on how we should all be thinking about our own careers and perhaps willfully choosing to remix them as we go into 2022?
Yeah. And I appreciate that. You're right. Like it's such a unique moment. I'm similar to you where I've been in this space as far as with coaching, and I'm a former journalist, so similar to yourself. And the space that I've been in I've been kind of in it for about 5-6 years since I did my 2 startups. The second startup, called Cuddler, ended up selling it. And that was all happening, as you can probably hear in the background, while I was a primary caretaker of my wife and I's 2 sons. At the time, our first son was a baby. And so this idea of what I call non-traditional entrepreneurs, people were doing side hustles, people are solopreneurs, people are creating things, people are doing TV shows, from their location, just as you are, Dorie. This has been a space that's been growing for quite a few years, the space that I've been occupying. The challenging part, though, was that many years ago, we weren't really trying to have that conversation, as we would say, because we looked at traditional jobs as security. I get a paycheck every other week, every other Friday. It's been a long time since I've had a traditional paycheck. I think it's every other Friday. Someone tell me in the chat. But every other Friday, right? You feel me, Dorie? But every other Friday, right? Every other Friday, I get a paycheck. FICA and other things are taken out. I have a 401k or what the equivalent is. They match it, et cetera, et cetera. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I might have stock options. I used to live in Silicon Valley, so I might have stock options, et cetera, et cetera. I'm good. I don't need to do anything on the side. And then slowly but surely, based on my research, that security was dwindling. And the best security, as you understand, Dorie, is to have multiple income streams. Now, I've always been interested in what millionaires do, and now we're talking billionaires, because millionaires, I guess, is passe now. But billionaires and what they do, and they talk about the average millionaire and now billionaire having 7 streams of income. That's something that I've been a big proponent of. I have several passive income streams, some of them from the books I've done, and some of them from the TV show I have with the Bring Your Worst show at youtube.com/BrownDamon. You can get it at DamonBrown.net, all these different things. But those things were built over time. Again, Dorie, as you understand, it's not something that you do really quickly. When the pandemic hit, it sped up this transition. And so suddenly people are like, wow, my traditional job is shut down. My partner is actually a first responder. So she's in the medical industry. And so it's like that affected her job. I know people who are a lot of artists, like musicians. I'm friends with a lot of chefs because I love food. So a lot of my friends are chefs and so forth, right? How do they figure out how to have a business and how to pivot and how to, frankly, just pay their bills? What the Great Resignation is showing is that there are certain cracks and issues with the systems that we have, and not even necessarily political, not even necessarily as far as security, as far as Social Security and so forth, but just as far as how we look at our careers. We need to look at our careers and our networks independently of the job that we have. So there's what I call in the Career Remix, I call it an inner network and an outer network, right? So you have the inner network is I'm going to go and reach out to Bob. Bob in accounting, if a check is running slow or whatever, I can talk to him. It's like, cool. I know Susie over in HR. If I have an issue, then I can talk to Susie. She'll get anything done for me. I'm good. But what happens when you leave that environment? And that's one of the things I talk about in Career Remix is people are realizing that they need to build an outer network, not just an inner network. And when people say I'm a good networker, right? And I connect with people really well and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, but what happens when you're a fish out of that pond? And again, Dorie, you can relate to this. We have similar paths. When you're independent, when you're on your own, you're creating your own businesses, you actually have an outer network because you don't have an inner network. You don't have a job that you go to. The 4 million people, I think it was back in April, I think that was the highest number, the 4 million people that quit their job back in April or May, I don't know how many of them have actually created that outer network. And in 2022, with Career Remix, I'm hoping that people will find out that they need one and that this can help them on that particular pivot. I hope that all makes sense.
I think that's a great point, Damon. Thank you so much. And we just want to take a moment to say hi to some of the great friends that are tuning in from around the world to join our conversation here on the Newsweek Better Show. We have Amanda Rose from Ontario. We have Sandy from Portland. We've got a LinkedIn user from Vancouver tuning in. Cheryl is here every week. Good job, Cheryl. Good to see you from Minneapolis, St. Paul. We have LinkedIn users from Paris, and Tabrez is here from Dubai. Cyprian is here from South Africa.
Awesome
Rebecca
place.
from Chicago. It's amazing. Laura from London. Keru from Nairobi. Raul is here from Delaware. We're so glad to have all of you guys here and more. Please type your questions for Damon Brown into the chat box. We're here talking about Damon's new book. It's called Career Remix, and we're talking about how we can maximize the career skills that we need for 2022. So Damon, you've raised some really excellent points here, and I'm curious, one of the points that you make in Career Remix is that actually it's not a bad idea, in fact, maybe even a good idea, to design your life around your career. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what that might look like?
Absolutely. And that was one of the main things I wanted to talk to you about today. We tend to go a little bit backwards and say, this is a career that I want. This is what's going to pay well. If you're more traditionalist, this is what's going to pay well. So I'm going to do this. This is what is going to make my family happy. And so I'm going to do this. People say I'm good at this, so I'm going to do this. What I found is it actually helps to do the reverse and to say, what kind of life do I want to live? What kind of person do I want to be in my career? I have 2 little kids. They're 8 and 5. I'm the primary caregiver. And so whatever I've done over the past 10 years, from the books to keynotes to even connecting with you right now, it's based on the life that I want to live, where they are, at least at this point, the priority, as opposed to saying, I'm going to do these things, I'm going to make it fit. A good example is when my eldest was about 3 and my youngest was, I believe he was a baby. I got this opportunity. I've done a few different TED Talks. So I had an opportunity to do something related to TED. I cannot remember the specifics. And it was going to take me on the road. And it didn't make any sense. And so it's like, that's going to take me away from the stuff that's my priority right now. So instead, I did different things. A good example is the Bring Your Worth show. I just had my year anniversary of it. It's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on YouTube. And that fit what I wanted to do. Think about exactly a year ago, because we weren't sheltering out of place anytime soon. And so it's like, I want to do my keynotes. Dorie, I'm similar to you, where I like connecting with people. I love traveling. That wasn't happening last holiday. So it's like, well, why don't I start a show similar to what you've done with Newsweek, connect with people. And now it's grown into its own thing. It's a part of my passive income stream. I'm actually getting in-person keynotes this upcoming year based on people seeing the show. So, right. So it's like fitting the lifestyle that I have. And I'm able to spend time with my kids, who at least most of this past year have been sheltering in place. So creating something around the life that you want to have makes way more sense. You know, the Great Resignation. And I mean, Dorie, you might know this better than I do. I think there's all these names that are coming up, like the Great Return, like the Great whatever, all these different terms that are coming up for 2022. I am skeptical.
My friend Anne-Marie Neal came up with my favorite one. She calls it the Great Retaliation.
We have a similar attitude. I'm like, I don't know if it's gonna be a great return, but okay. If that's what you think, that's fine. As we go into this new environment, we have this rare opportunity. I have a good friend, Will Lucas. He's the editorial director over at Afrotech. And we were talking about that, where we had an interview about a year ago when my previous book, Built From Now, came out. And during our discussion, we talked about the concrete not being dry right now. And I love that analogy, where it's like the stuff that's going on right now, politically, socially, really into Brene Brown, so emotional intelligence, all these different ways that we're kind of leveling up or can level up. Let me rephrase that. The ways that we can level up right now, they're not going to happen again, probably for our lifetime. So it's like, if you're going to do some cool stuff, now is the time. You got to figure it out. And it could be a side hustle. It could be you leaving your job. That's a little bit extreme. Things are a little bit insecure right now. So I don't know about, going out the gate, but at least preparing something again that connects to your outer network, and the way that we're able, just like you and I, Dorie, we're able to build things outside of traditional systems. So even if, God forbid, another pandemic were to hit, if there's certain employers or people that we work with that don't want to work with it anymore, or vice versa, we have the opportunity to be agile, to be thoughtful, and to basically have the resources to move on to that next level where we're supposed to be. And so I look at this as a grand opportunity. I don't know about the great resignation, but maybe the great opportunity would be a better term for that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We are here with Damon Brown. You can learn more about him and his new book, Career Remix, by checking out damonbrown.net. And there it is right there. If you're enjoying this conversation, please hit the like button and hit the share button. And if you want to make sure that you are never missing one of our weekly sessions for Newsweek, every Thursday at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, just go to dorieclark.com. You can sign up, get a free self-assessment, and you will get reminders about these great conversations and other things. We want to also take a moment to say hello to some of the great folks that are joining us. Scott is here. Bernadette's here from East Lansing. We've got Bill from Scranton. Leanne and Tammy are both tuning in from Ontario. Marion from Georgia. We've got Japar in Zurich. This is great. Rex is here from Seattle. Donald from Colorado. Carly is here also from Ontario. Wow, Damon. I don't know if it's you or me, but somebody's big in Canada. So that's good. I like that.
We do love Canada. Vancouver and Toronto are wonderful places, as is Montreal. Yeah, I love all of them.
We want to give love across Canada. This is awesome.
Yeah, the whole bottom shelf, exactly.
We love it. I mean, Yukon, Nova Scotia. We don't discriminate here. I love it. Pratyusha is here from India. We've got Brad from Western Kentucky. We're so happy to have all of you. Please type your questions for Damon Brown into the chat box. We'd love to hear from you. Damon, one of the things that I was most fascinated by in Career Remix was one of the things you talked about was the question of power. You said that a lot of us, have power that we kind of need to uncover. And I'm curious if you can talk a little bit more about that. What is that power? What does that look like? And how do we begin to that process of uncovering it if we're not really sure?
I love that question, Dorie. And in the several books I've done over the last few years, I realized that was a subtext of us owning our power. My whole book imprint is called Bring Your Worth. And so that starts with knowing your own power. It kind of doesn't matter how much power you have if you don't recognize it. I'll give a really simple example. Again, both you and I come from a journalism background. And there's so many journalists that I've talked to, particularly freelance, where I've been an independent journalist for a while. And that means you're pitching different publications, including like a Newsweek, right? If you want to get meta for a second. And feeling like they're doing you a favor if they're running a particular article, if they're giving you a shot, etc. And we don't realize that without the journalists, particularly without the freelancers like myself and like yourself, Dorie, then those publications don't function. We saw a lot of that. We're seeing a lot of that with the Great Resignation or the Great Retaliation, which keeps popping up in the comments. Shout out to your friend who brought it up. But that's what we're seeing now. It's like people are realizing, oh, wait, not only does it not fit my lifestyle, but I don't have to do it. Wow. Okay. this is a revelation. Like, we didn't have to do it this way, and again, we have this in common. I tend to be relatively rebellious in thought. At least that's the feedback that I've gotten. So I've always had a viewpoint where I'm like, all right, we have these systems in place. They were here before I was born, as I talked about a little bit in Career Remix and the predecessor Build From Now. It's like these systems that were in place probably before I was born, but why are they here? Do they have to be here? Does it have to be the system? A really simple viewpoint of this is the hybrid workplace. And it's like, we could have been working remotely the whole time, but there's resistance from leadership. There's resistance from organizations. It's like, turning the ship on the Titanic, it's like, so it's going to take a while for them to adjust. Now we have to adjust. My main thing as a coach, as a speaker, even our conversation right now, is to help people adjust before they have to. Because adjusting when you have to, at least for me, I like my freedom. So that's painful to me. Instead, I'd rather say, this is the way that the wind is blowing. Let's move towards that. But before we understand that, before we do that, we have to understand our agency, our power. When you're working for an organization, when you're working with an organization, even as an independent consultant or a freelancer, you both have equal power. If they didn't have to hire you, they wouldn't hire you. Even if it was a nonprofit or 501(c), whatever, that's not their job to hire you. They're hiring you because you have a particular service, a particular point of view, particular power that they need to go to the next level. And I don't care if they're paying you $1 or $5 million. They're hiring you for a reason. It's not charity. You recognize that in every contract that you sign, every job interview. As many people have told me, you're interviewing the person who's interviewing you while you're being interviewed for the job, right? So you need to ask them questions. All those little details come from us understanding our agency and our power. And Career Remix, as you talk about, gets into that with a few of the chapters. But that's kind of like I'm realizing that's an ongoing thread with my books. It's like, hey, own your power. No one's going to give it to you. And actually, you already have it, so no one can give it to you.
Amen to that. That's fantastic, Damon. And a great question came in. I was actually seeing several people were curious about this. I'm going to highlight Rex's. Rex wanted to hear more, Damon, about something that you had touched on earlier, which is about creating multiple income streams. He wanted to know, what are the kind of side hustles or second streams of income are you seeing the most? Is it online courses or coaching or consulting? What are you seeing out there? And what would you suggest for people who are perhaps interested in exploring a little bit more about this realm as we enter 2022?
Yeah, totally. I did a book with Jeanette Hurt called The Passive Writer, which came out a few years ago. And so it's been pretty popular. It's focused on passive income as writers, obviously, but it also talks about other things, but addresses a lot of these things. You can get it at damonbrown.net or at your favorite store. And one of the best things you can do, let's start with the practical side of it, then I'll give some examples. One of the best things you can do is figure out what your particular superpower is. So what are you known for? For me, I like to talk. You probably can notice. I like to talk, and I like to exchange ideas with other people. I love to travel, and I love to see people shine. I don't need the spotlight. I want to help other people get the spotlight. Kind of like, I think it was 3M. I think used to have that saying. It's like, we don't make the battery, but we make the battery better so that it could work. Right? I'm that batter. I'm like the 3M of that. And so me being a coach, me being a keynote speaker, me being an author, and Career Remix is my 26th book. So I love writing books. That fits as far as the work that I do. Am I someone that's on the front line? Not so much. And so the side hustles and the things that I do fit my particular personality. And you can ask my relatives, people that have known me for a while, where me having deep conversations, and I'd be that guy that be at an awesome party and I'm having a deep conversation with like 2 or 3 other people with a drink in my hand in the corner. What is that but coaching, right? And so, right. And so there's elements of that in the work that I do, even though I'm well past that age. So if you're trying to figure out your best side hustle or your best solopreneurship, what you're trying to do, think about those things that not necessarily come naturally to you, because public speaking does not come naturally to me, but those things that fit your personality well. And so even when I wasn't getting paid much for a keynote, I was doing coaching for free and so forth, I still loved the work. one of the things I always say to my coaching clients is that make sure that you enjoy the work that you're doing. Because number one, initially, it's not going to bring in much income. That's just kind of a rule. It reminds me a lot of The Alchemist, the famous book from a few years ago by Paulo Coelho, where things are often withheld from you so you can figure out if you actually care about it. And then once you kind of lock in, then suddenly all these things come. It could be financial, it could be security, it could be fame or whatever. I've had several different careers and it's always been true. It doesn't come right away. So whatever you're doing, make sure that's something that you can see yourself doing for a little while. The second part of it is to not bet the farm on it. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, Dorie. There's so many people that have come to work with me or, gotten comments on my Bring Your Worst show, whatever. And they say, okay, I listened to your 30-minute video. I'm ready to quit my job. And I'm like, no, Dorie, I know you know.
Please don't.
I know you know this conversation. And it's like, God, no. Instead, you have the security. You have the resources to fund your next project. You have all these things from your day job. So just do a little bit on the side. And so many great things have come with side hustles. To get to Rex's other part of the question, I've seen the gamut. I've seen people that have done craft services, not food, but like literally craft, like crocheting and so forth. I've seen people become coaches. I've seen people do the online courses, which are really popular because everyone's remote, and Dorie, both you and I have online courses. So it fits whatever fits you. Excuse me. The biggest thing that I would recommend is not only figure out what your superpower is, but also doing more technology and figuring out how that fits into it. I talk about at the top of the show. I wouldn't have my own TV show if it wasn't for YouTube and these other things that made it easier. And instead of me trying to go to, I live in Las Vegas, so me driving 4 hours to Hollywood and begging CBS for a TV show, I don't need to do that. A year ago, I was like, I'm going to start a TV show. And now I have thousands of viewers. It's like, oh, okay, that's how it works nowadays. So really leveraging that technology and figuring out where you're being called to and create and keep that day job, because then that takes the pressure off of you having to have that side hustle work. My TV show was able to grow organically, just like yours has been, I'm sure, because that wasn't my only source. It didn't have to work. Instead, it grew organically, and now it's a beautiful thing.
You raised such an important point, Damon. I love that. And in fact, my previous book, Entrepreneurial You, also talks extensively. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, it talks a lot about creating multiple streams of income. And I think we're very much on the same page that you need to be thoughtful about how you're rolling it out, that it's not, a good idea to say, in 2022, I'm going to add 10 new income streams. We have to be measured and judicious. And it actually ties in with a follow-up question that Rebecca wanted to know. She's curious, Damon. She likes Rex's question about the multiple income streams. And she says, I'm also wondering how many other income streams to build at once. How stable does each income stream need to be before you continue to add? So, we're juggling some balls. How long should we be juggling before we add another into the mix? What would be your perspective on that, Damon, for people who are interested in thinking about side hustles or passive income as we come into the new year?
Yeah, my take is, in fact, I think it's up here. Here it is. A great book called Martha Rules. Fantastic book. It came out about 15 years ago, 20 years ago. It was talking about passive income before I even knew what it was. So highly recommend it. Shout out to the author. But what it talks about is creating one thing and turning into many. And so I'll give a meta example. Before Career Remix, my last book was called Built From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World. When the book came out, then it was a physical book. It was an audio book. It was, I think I did a course related to it. I did a show connected to it. And there's so many different ways that one thing became multiple streams. And so right now, I think when Career Remix comes out, it's coming out January 18th. I forgot to mention it. It's coming out in a few weeks. You can pre-order now. When that comes out, I will be at about 52 or 53 passive income streams. But that's over the course of 5 or 6 years and really being thoughtful about it. So if passive income streams are your priority more so than, say, a side hustle, or you're not sure if it's going to work, depending on the level that you're at, then try to create one thing and turn it into multiple things. For instance, again, Built From Now ended up becoming a course on Teachable. So I was taking that same content and putting on the Teachable, adding some videos and some exclusive things, even expanding on the bibliography in the back and the videos and the insights that I got from, like I quoted Oprah in one of them. The whole Oprah interview was on there. So there's ways to multiply the one thing that you have into multiple streams of income. That would be the best advice I could give. But I mean, if you're just starting out, just try one passive piece of passive income. The second thing I would recommend really quickly is to actually ask the people that you serve. Just like Dorie, I have a newsletter at joindamon.me. It's every Wednesday at 5:55 a.m. My time, so West Coast time. Doing it consistently for about 4 or 5 years. And so a lot of the passive income streams that I have now, and the stable ones, if I want to quote what you said, they came from me being connected to the people that I serve and them saying, oh, we want more of that. Oh, we want a Teachable course. Oh, okay. And I did a Teachable course, and then a lot of people signed up for it in the pre-order. But how can you go wrong if you ask the people what they want? But first, before you ask people what they want, you actually have to be connected to the people, which is why having a newsletter, having something beyond social media, but some way to connect with people. Excuse me. I think it becomes even more important during the pandemic. Because
That's
now,
great.
right? Because Dorie and I have that similar where we're used to being on the road. We're used to connect with people in person. It's like, oh yeah, I met her, I met him at this thing, blah, blah. We don't have that anymore. And so the closer you can get connected, the less degrees of separation from the people that you serve, the quicker and smarter side hustles you can create. And that's why I have like 52 passive income streams. It's because I'm connected directly to the people. Not because I'm great. It's just the people are literally telling me what they want. And it's not just through social media. It's through all these other channels that I think are so important, particularly as we go through the great retaliation. It's like we need to connect with the audience that we want to serve.
Absolutely, Damon. This is fantastic. We probably have time for one more brief question. We have been here talking with Damon Brown. He's the author of the new, about to be released book. Pre-order it now. It's called Career Remix, and you can learn more at damonbrown.net. And if you want to make sure you never miss one of our weekly Newsweek interview shows, just follow me at dorieclark.com/LinkedIn. You can follow me there. You can sign up for my LinkedIn newsletter and get regular reminders about our conversations. So, Damon, the last question that I wanted to ask comes in from Marion from Atlanta, and he is curious about your thoughts. How can people begin to just take a more positive approach as we go into 2022? For so many people, for perhaps obvious reasons, 2020, 2021 has felt like kind of a negative time. We all feel like we've been in a little bit of a rut. There's a lot of people, especially if they've lost jobs or had disruptions, where they might be feeling a little bit frustrated. What are your thoughts briefly on how we can just all take a more positive approach as we go into the new year in thinking about our careers and about opportunities?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier, and thank you for that, Marion. That's a really good observation. As I mentioned earlier, is realizing that we only have one shot at this. So that's it. So something that we've heard a lot, and I'm sure the people in the comments have heard it, is I can't wait to get back to normal. So normal meant a lot of inequities. Normal meant you going back and forth to your job and doing the hellacious commute that you don't have to do anymore. I have a family, so normal might have meant not seeing them as much. Is that what we want? And so my question isn't so much, or my anecdote for that, anecdote for that wouldn't necessarily be everything's chippy and happy. People have passed away. There's jobs that aren't coming back. People are financially strapped in some cases. It's a rough period of time. No lie. Literally everyone's been affected. When we do bounce back, what is that going to look like? That's why my last book was called Built From Now. What is that going to look like? And so if you build from now, remix your career, keep going, then you're able to lean into the future and build something better. Right? And so if you're focused on that, you don't have time to be negative. That's why I've done so many books in the last couple of years. I'm trying to create a better future for you, for my family, you know, for when I'm gone. And this is a rare opportunity. This is something that 40 years from now, if we're still around, we're going to be telling people about. And the question, pardon my French, is what the hell did you do? How did you take advantage of this time? We had this 2-3 year gap where we could have reset everything. Okay, what did you do? Did you complain about how it wasn't how it was before? Or did you make a better future with that rare opportunity that you had? And now we have opportunity to fix the infrastructures, fix the systems, even personally, build something better. So how can we not be excited about that? And this door is going to close. It's the writing's on the wall. So what are you going to do about it? That's my ultimate question.
And
sorry to get off on you, but I got to go there.
We gotta go there. That's the whole point of this show, Damon. Thanks for taking it and running with it. I love it. We are always excited and cheering all of you on as we go into 2022. We are every single Thursday, we're going to go there, and we want to help make your life better as well. So thank you all for tuning in. And to Damon Brown, he is the author of Career Remix, a new book. Pre-order it now. It's going to be out imminently. And the goal, of course, is to help your career be better in 2022 and beyond. So Damon, thank you so much for joining us.
And thank you, Dorie. I always appreciate the time. Take care.
Thank you. Take care, everyone, and see you next week.